Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's Inside Unreal, which is a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I'm your host, Tina, and we do have guests today, I promise you. But first, we have announcements that I want to make sure we get through first. So, the two things. First thing we're going to start off with is last week was Unreal Fest Seattle. Woo! In case anybody didn't know, that did happen. There was a lot of really cool stuff that happened through there, and thankfully we were actually able to live stream quite a few of the presentations that happened. So if you weren't able to make it out to Fest itself, there are a lot of presentations that are currently up and available, including the opening session. And in that opening session, we announced a lot of really cool pieces of news, including the 5.5 preview has launched. In case you didn't know, that's out there. Go download it, check it out. As well as Megalites is out with that preview, which is huge and insane. Please go play around with it and give us your feedback. We would love to learn more about how you're feeling about the tools, if they're helping you out so far. Keep in mind, they are still technically experimental, so maybe don't implement them technically yet, but please do go explore, have fun, let us know what you think. Another announcement that was included in that opening session from Unreal Fest was that we have also released the Epic for Indies Hub. So that is currently available at the Epic developer community. It's a subsection there. And the really cool thing about Epic for Indies is that it's available for all indies that are associated with any part of the Epic ecosystem. So you do not have to be using Unreal Engine as the engine that you're building your game off of to get support from us. If you're using the Epic Game Stores, Epic Online Services, or if you're even just interested in participating in the Epic ecosystem overall. I'm going to stumble over the word ecosystem like every time I say it. Please bear with me. But if you want to just be involved in any part of it, then you're welcome in this indie space for you. So please go check that out. Hang out there. We've got lots of stuff available there for you, including tutorials, announcements. We're going to be doing showcases regularly where we get to see all different kinds of really cool indie content. So go check it out. Be part of it. Come hang out with us. Learn things. Meet other like-minded developers, and hopefully the goal here is that we make a space where all indie devs can kind of come together, share their knowledge, and we can all grow and learn from one another. So check that out. And that's it. That's our announcements for today. So now we'll get into the actual show itself. So today with me, I have some of the incredible team from Light Farm who are behind the experience of Senna Closer to God. I'm going to go through and have each of you introduce yourselves, tell us just a little bit about yourselves, what we're going to get into, all that good stuff. So Milton, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, Tina. My name is Milton. I'm the director of Light Farm. It's a production company based in Rio, Brazil. And Senna is our very first animation short in Unreal. It was like our test drive to see if we could do the same things we were doing with Blender, Maya, and other softwares, and understand if we could do even better in Unreal or more real or anything. And it was an interesting surprise. And artistically speaking, I'm in the post-production and lighting and camera and photography, you could say. And the
Yeah.
amazing VV. VV was my co-director in this project. I couldn't done it without her. And yeah, you go, Vivi.
Thank you. Hi, Tina. Hi, everyone. So I'm Vivi. I'm the head of the interactive department here at Light Farm. So I'm involved with all the projects that mess up with the new stuff that's coming up. And we're pretty much now hands-on Unreal Engine. It was my first big project working with Unreal, and I was super excited to have this opportunity to co-direct it with Milton. And we have a lot to share. I hope the guys like it. And Andre is our tech, one of the most important tech guy that we have on team. So
So hello
Yeah.
guys, hello Tina. I'm Andre. I'm 3D rigger in Light Farm, and I'm here to show to you guys a little bit about the process that we make to make the move possible. So a lot of good stuff, and I hope you like the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here today and to walk through the project with us. We get to get a really cool kind of behind the scenes look on how it happened, learn some of the process. I'm really excited to really dig into there. I know that we did bring a couple of videos. The first one is just kind of the beautiful end result of everything, and I think that might be a good place for us to start. And then we'll dig into the content a little bit further from there.
Mr. Senna, what happened in Monaco?
That day, I suddenly realized that I was no longer driving it conscious. And I was in a different dimension for me. The circuit for me was a tunnel, which I was just going.
Slow down.
And I realized I was well beyond my conscious understanding.
Senna, you are so far in the lead. Please.
I just came to so close to perfection that we can. That I relaxed. I opened windows for mistakes.
Senna, please.
Ayrton Senna is out of his car and out of this race.
And I learned that there. And since then, I progressively come back because I lost some confidence. And progressively, I fought back, and I got much stronger after that incident. Somehow, I got closer to God, and that has been very important for me as a man. Some moments when I am actually driving just detach me completely from anything else.
Amazing.
You see the amount of people involved. It's a lot, and this was a passion project for us. In the beginning, it was we were trying out Unreal since Unreal 4.27, I think, and then we moved to Unreal 5. We were like waiting for it, kind of like getting ready with 4.27, and then when they launched Unreal 5, we we close ourselves in the garage and start creating the things we used to create in Maya or in Blender, or back in the day Cinema 4D and Modo, or even Houdini. We were used to those tools. We work with animation. It's been over a decade, and LifeFarm is a big company. We have close to 200 people, but the team exploring Unreal and testing things out, that was a very small team. You could say like an indie group with one rig, one tech artist, one animator, one lighting, and then we had this guy Marcelo Vaz. He can really do realism in Arnold and Maya and standard mainstream pipeline. And it was really funny to assign him to do the same thing in Unreal, and first testing the limits of Lumen, and understanding that it's pretty awesome. I think it's gonna get to Path Tracer before Path Tracer gets to real time, but um, and also you have the possibilities of path tracing as well, which was the case here, and although we love Lumen, and but I think you need more expertise to make Lumen look closer to Path Tracer. And for us, we were trying to push the limits within the Unreal, not necessarily in Lumen. We were trying to, get to the closest to realism as possible. And I think at the moment, having the possibility within Unreal, it's awesome because you still work in a Lumen viewport if you want, and especially for animation, it doesn't make sense to have your viewport in path tracing. But if you're doing lighting and camera and other things, it's pretty awesome. And it's just swap through Lumen and path tracing. But I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Lumen's gonna get so good that it's gonna be undistinguishable from path tracing, like when you're rendering nature and stuff. But today, even with a 5.4, 5.5, when you're rendering glass and skin, it's hard. It's very hard. It demands like a lot of lighting piercing through materials, refraction, and the amount of data you have of just the light bounces. I think it's gonna get a little longer for Lumen to get there, to have that nice like pink ear, or a really nice glass reflection or refraction. But it's getting closer. If you think about nature, if you're rendering a forest, it's undistinguishable. It doesn't matter path tracing or Lumen. But yeah, that was our first challenge, like personal challenge. I think me and Combat in the beginning, one of my partners, we were thinking, okay, now we can do cartoon in Unreal. We have another project we can show later, which is an alien and an astronaut living together, trapped in the moon. And we tried that out, making custom MetaHuman faces. But then Senna was the first, okay, let's do just a standard AAA realism, and let's see if it's possible. Let's see if it's possible for us. We know it's possible. Like we're seeing Blue Dot and other Unreal projects that are super realistic. Even the Matrix release back in the day with Unreal 5. But the thing is, like, can we do it? Considering you never done it before, and we never done it realism in general. Not in this scale, having a human being, a historical Monaco city, and yeah, that was an interesting challenge. And I bought the idea to. It was interesting because I just had my second child, and when I came back from the hospital, I don't know, like I was kind of inspired, and we were thinking about, okay, who's gonna be our realistic character? We thought about LeBron James, and then somebody said, okay, do someone Brazilian, and then they thought, okay, who's the best Brazilian? and then we thought, okay, is it Pele? Oh no, Pele, I don't know. And then Senna, and they were like, yeah, Senna. And I think that thing kept on my mind. And when I came back from the hospital, I went on a straight 5 nights without sleeping. And when I could sleep on that, like you get dizzy and stuff when you don't sleep well. And because I was, getting these sleepovers, I every time I had a time, I went to the computer and do some storyboards and put the music together, his voice together, And when I had something that I could imagine what it would be, it was very emotional. Yeah, I felt like strange, like I was evoking his spirit in a way. And knowing that I would need to talk to the family, get their permission to use his voice, to use his image. Then there's this issue with all the brands involved on the historical moment, the cars, and it was a big challenge politically, rebuilding Senna in 3D for the first time. They're gonna have the Netflix series about him in November, I think, release in November. But I know they have an actor. I don't know if they're like rebuilding Senna. Rebuilding Senna and approving with his family, it was the most challenging part of the process. And we rebuilt Monaco from '88. We rebuilt all the cars in high resolution models, but remaking him with poor quality pictures from back in the day, from poor quality videos, without having the chance to actually scan the person in 360, which would be the ideal. But anyways, like, I think we can get to the breakdown, and it's gonna we're gonna have loads of interesting information to talk about, and not just the story. But that was the whole idea, the whole challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't actually think about that particular part of it either, about yeah, trying to recreate his visage in a way from just images and making sure that it was close enough that, the family approves and everything. So that's quite a challenge that you decided to undertake, and it ended up amazing. I mean, the end result, I think, spoke for itself. It was stunning.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was I went to his family and Senna Brands. They have NGO, I think, ONG. So it's just like governmental institution. They build schools, and Senna was a big political, social guy, always involved in social campaigns and stuff. So his family kept through that, and we approve with his nephews and um, I think sister. I don't know, but yeah, very close family to him, and they were approving with like his mom, and so it was very touching for us to do that, but also like the responsibility and the amount of like back and forth, and oh, like there's something wrong with his eyes and his ears or his beard, or freckles on the nose, and we have to custom build that by hand, like no shortcuts or anything, no skin textures that you could use. It's just handmade it from the model itself to grooming, eyebrows, or fur you have on your cheek you don't even notice. The amount of detail we try to put on it was unparalleled. But the challenge got funnier when they mentioned, and that was strange, right? Because I had a second child, went home, had this idea, talked with Vivi and the team that could help me out, because there's no way you can do something like this by yourself unless you that's the only thing you do, and you never sleep. But I talked to the team, and they said, oh yeah, that would be cool, let's do this and all. And then the family mentioned something. They were like, that was November last year. They said, okay, he Santa is gonna have his 30th anniversary since his death, and do you think you guys can manage to deliver in 5 months? So something that was a passion project with no, let's see if we can do something we never done before. Let's do it for fun, for freedom, creative freedom, passion, in our free time. And then it became like a full on 5 months deadline kind of job. But I think when they asked me if it was possible, I I thought no way, but I couldn't say it. and I knew it was one of those life chances that either you go do it or you don't, and you're gonna regret your whole life. So I thought, okay, let's do it, and we have 5 months to do it.
5 months? That was the total?
It was the total 5 months.
Wow.
From nothing to no buildings, no cars, no Senna, nothing to everything.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Oh, well, I do want to dig into the background and everything that you brought up as well, but thank you for giving us some of that context behind the initial start of it and what got this going in the first place. It's a really cool context to have.
Yeah, and I think we can show a little bit of the behind the scenes, so people that are just listening could see what we've done, and then we can cut down to the breakdown with Vivi and Andre.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm ready. This is my land and I'm feeling the rain. Try me, must be out of your brains. King blood, feel it run through my veins. Conqueror, cause I'm breaking the chains. My land and I'm willing to reign. Try me, you'll be feeling the pain. Too wild, I can never be tamed. Conqueror, cause I'm breaking the chains. This is my land. I'm too wild. Can't touch me. Can't tame me. Breaking free. Can't tame me. I'm so free. Too wild, I can never be tamed. Conqueror, cause I'm breaking the chains. Breaking the chains. Breaking the chains. Breaking the chains. Too wild, I can never be tamed. Breaking the chains. Breaking the chains. Try me, feeling the pain. Conqueror, cause I'm breaking the chains. I break the chains.
That was our 5 months right there in 2 minutes.
Amazing. I feel like it's difficult to do that, to take a full 5 months of very intense work and get it down into 2 minutes. I feel like it doesn't even begin to encompass the overall work and everything that was put into it, right?
Yeah, well, and this is mostly like the mocap and look dev and MetaHuman results. But I think if we could show the actual work, it would be like a huge epic adventure through the bugs and our inexperience and the things we did wrong and the times where like we were complaining about Unreal and it was our fault, or vice versa. We thought it was our fault, but it was Unreal. And yeah, we took the time to get used to everything, to even swap versions in between. And it's very hard when Unreal release a new version and you developing something for ages and you have to swap. But yeah, I think we can go through the stages and break down with VV, talking about the modeling and the first steps we've done.
All right, let's do it. So, as Milton said, it it was a super cool project, but a challenged one. And it was kind of a bumpy road for us because everyone jumped in with a lot of excitement to do it, but then some problems happened all the way, and we had to find out ways to complete our journey in the best way possible. So first of all, thank you for all the artists that were involved in this project, and thank you for the opportunity to show this here because everyone that worked here worked with heart and a lot of brain to bring this thing together. So the first thing we had to do was to build up Monaco, which was where the race was held. And how to do that? That was our first challenge. And we did it in real world scale. So lots of buildings. Um, and we had some pretty Unreal made that possible in many ways. So first of all, we built around 50, we modeled from scratch around 56 of the most iconic buildings that Monaco has, and they have a lot of detail. They are not modern ones. So there was a lot of work. And all of those static meshes we imported and had nanite enabled. So that made our work really lighter. And also, when we had the camera close to those details, we knew that they would show up, all the work that the modeling has done in those buildings and also the vegetation. So nanite really helped out in this case. Another thing that helped a lot was that we used level instances. So Monaco is huge. We have a lot of assets. We have buildings, we have trees, we have guardrails, we have boats and people. So we did split in like approximately 10 levels, and all those levels were instanced into a main level where everything was updated in real time. So we could have different teams or different artists working in the different levels at the same time, and that saved us a lot of time. Um, so here you can see that we're turning on and off those levels, so you can see how it was built. And also PCG that I always forget, but I wrote it down. That stands for procedural content generation. I always forget the C. But this is so cool. And when I saw this happening, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So we used PCG for some to scatter some of the vegetation. And we needed to have an audience for this race. That at the race day, there was like tons of people everywhere watching the race. We couldn't have all of them, but we wanted to have them animated. So we used PCG to scatter, and we bought some scanned people, added mocap animation to them, and then we had this beautiful audience where we had standing and clapping with arms up and cheering. And then we hit the render button, and it didn't render because it was path tracing. And it was too slow. We couldn't do it. We couldn't do it with path tracing. And then our team was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? And our solution was remove the animation and make them static meshes. Why? Because we had the opportunity to do that because in our film the cameras are super fast. They are shaking. We have motion blur. So no one could actually tell that those people were static. So that was our solution at the time. Maybe we could come up with a different one right now with new versions of Unreal, but for this film, nobody moves. And PCG really helped us to scatter everyone when we needed for each shot. That is super cool. And also, we had this blueprint array that actually helped a lot because we had to make the guardrail from around the whole track, which is big. So the artist just draw with a spline the whole track inside and outside, and then we had the guardrail just being built real time, and that made the process like super easy and fast for us. Um, Also, here a little bit about the modeling from the other assets. They were pretty much straightforward. So for Senna, as Milton said, there was a lot of back and forth with the family and approvals, but it was all sculpted using ZBrush, a little bit of Blender. For the grooming, we worked with Houdini. So the artists that worked and did a pretty cool job here made it all in Houdini. So eyebrows, eyelashes, beard, and hair. And the clothes were made in marvelous designer. Boots and other assets like the helmet and the cars we modeled in different softwares like Maya or Blender. Even I think that 3D Max was used. And one cool thing that I love to say about this helmet, because there were a lot of debates. Because all the time I'm kind of beginning to look that right now, but every time we looked, and we have a lot of Senna fans in our team, um, there was a debate about how many scratches could we add to the helmet or to the car, because when you watch any F1 race, it's all so clean and so shiny. But our director and the one that made most of the look that's here, he said that we did need to add, and they actually have, if you look close to a helmet that was in a race, you do have scratches. And he said that we needed to add those because if we are from a distant camera view, we wouldn't actually see, but it gives it a more realistic feel instead of just being shiny because it could look more of a CG asset than a realistic one. So that's the level of detail, even if you don't have some like really close-up shots. That's the level of detail that the team worked, like the dirt and the boots here.
One interesting thing is when we went to this museum, the Senna Museum, all the helmets were pretty old, you know, it's all scratchy, and we asked like, "Oh, is this like an old helmet that he always use, or you know?" And they mentioned that Senna specifically, when he liked a helmet, he would use it until it, you know, he couldn't use it anymore. He could like change the visor, or but the actual helmet, he would use it over and over and over. So every helmet from Senna, it's very like you can see the scratches and tear and everything on even on the glass.
That's really cool.
Well, I was talking about this before. Like this, the guy who made this look dev, um, he's probably like my favorite look dev artist because he can really nail realism. Even though like he's more focused on cartoon or different more like picture style kind of work, but he really knows about realism, and I think this project was a big challenge for him, not only doing something that looks 100% realistic, but also doing it in Unreal. And he had some experience from our previous study projects, but nothing like this, nothing so realistic. And I think he was comparing like, oh, this is what I can do with Lumen, this is what I can do with path tracing, and he was getting like super close. I think just on the glass of the car you could see some differences from Lumen to path tracing, or on the visor of the pilot you could see some differentiations on the glass reflections. You can see some on the metal as well, but it's mostly on glass, the way it reflects and refracts, um, and also skin. But on the car scenes, like we, if we wanted, we could totally manage to render something in Lumen that is really close to the path tracing. But considering the time frame that we had, and also the demand to look 100% realistic, as realistic as possible, I think choosing path tracing, it was kind of easy, the easy way, because Lumen's a little harder to make it work the right way. And but I think he managed. He's done it the same way he does it in Substance Painter, and then he exports the diffuse and all the maps from Substance directly to Unreal. And the way that Unreal is dealing with UVs and mixing materials in the RGB channels, it's a very clever way. And And I think if you're choosing Path Tracer, is a no-brainer. You could totally get something out of Unreal that looks exactly the same as any other path tracing, and it's much lighter path tracer than other path tracers. So you get something that is like literally the same thing, but much lighter. But still, like, if one day we can manage to do something that realistic in Lumen, I'll be way prouder because I think it's much lighter. You can render real time, uh, uh, not only rendering, but you could go like do big renders like 4K, 6K, whatever, and it will still look good. But with path tracing, you have to go lower. We've done it in output in uh, 2560, 2560 pixels, um, and it was a cinema scope uh, render. But for everything, for the clothes and shoes, an interesting thing about the look dev process was that we went to the museum, we saw his clothes and took pictures, high res pictures, with a DLSR, Nikon, and so we had like this 8K resolution pixel images from his clothes. It wasn't necessarily like the exact model from the exact year because it changed year by year, but we
Right.
had the reference of how the fabric look and the dirt and the it wasn't new. Like his gloves, it was like he was a mechanic. You know, it was full on like black and full of texture, also his shoes as well. So we had the chance to apply some of that, if not as just reference, um, but then we could also use some of the texture as well on the final model. And then we have the face. The face was harder. I think we were trying to push for the highest resolution possible, um, and then keeping that balance from Senna had a pretty clear face, like a very soft face, kind of shiny, like he was always going to the beach or something. Um, but then if we did it like that, it would feel like it's lacking detail. And then we try to balance that out. I think a lot of the things you see regarding the detail is ZBrush on the on the modeling, and also the materials, the diffuse, the reflection, the roughness. When you align all that, you kind of have to exaggerate a little bit on the ZBrush model so you can actually see the detail. Uh, what do you think, Andre? I know you helped a little bit with his the look dev on his face.
The look dive was a very complicated part because of the, as I said, the skin, you know. So to make the look dive, we use high texture, high resolution. We bought some awesome texture from Scan 3D, and after this, Marcelo Vaz is our look diver. Is a master of the art, you know. So we start to work on the skin and find the correct color. So I think we have a good result at the end because we put side by side the original photo of the time of the race, and our skin is actually making a good match, you know.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty much a standard kind of pipeline, right? You model in ZBrush, you do your materials and surfacing in Substance, and then you import all the passes, the materials to your favorite kind of engine. Um, but yeah, I just like the overall process of Unreal. I've worked with Blender and other softwares before, and I think Unreal has a particular pipeline and the way it saves everything inside the project, the way it takes a while to open for the first time, or if you change some project settings. But I know, I think I kind of like it. the pipeline, and I think I was missing that from other softwares, kind of not understanding what is the ideal way of doing something and having like too many ways to go. And Unreal, like we play that is kind of like it's a rough mother, you know. It's it's like
Yeah.
it will never let you like save things in the wrong place, and if you do it, you suffer the consequences. And I kind of like that. I know that if my FPS is going lower, it's probably my fault. And having that efficiency counter on the top right, I think it helps to understand exactly like when you did something that screwed the project and you need to rethink. Or and sometimes it's something you never think about, like Vivi mentioned, the crowd. I would say like Unreal handle pretty well crowds, and and kind of does, but I know there are many efficiency workflows we could have done, but with a 5 months deadline, there were many things we have to just roll over and not overthink it. Some people were like Andre. I was like, oh, let's go back and rethink the pipeline. Andre, there's no time. Let's go. Let's go. If it's working, it's working.
Yeah. And I think I can talk a little bit about this because I make the rig of the process. And yes, we start thinking about a VR experience. And after this, we talk with the family and the thing grow up. And we don't have time to do nothing that way we started. So we need to take some shortcuts to deal with this. But I will show to you guys a little bit about the process. I don't know, we have our guy in the background. I don't know if he's sharing my screen, so I think now it's a good time to share my screen. So we'll talk a little bit about how we deal with these problems and how I solve some things. So for the beginning, we start with the default template. This is the vehicle one. It's a very good solution for for the purpose of the film. So I start with this and I bring the car, the default one, to Blender. I start the rigging process using the default rig. So if you see, we have this rig. This is the default one, and I start with this. I use this as base to do my own rig. So let me close this, and after this, I go this for this, and now I have the full car. And the suspension was very complicated stuff to do because a Formula One car have a very different suspension. So I need to do a lot of changes right here. And the car is kind of a blending situation between game car and cinematic stuff. So a lot of things must be done to this work the way we want. So um, let me show to you. We have bones in almost every part of the car. For example, if you see right there, the internal part, we have a shot when we show the Ayrton accelerating and brake at the same time. It's a very cool shot. So we need to do this kind of preparation to the animators deal with this in sequencer. So we have this and we have this, and everything needs to work with cinematics and game stuff at the same time. So a very cool process. So this is the rigging, the car rigged. And inside Unreal, I change in the blueprint. Um, this is the default blueprint. Actually, a very good solution. I change a little bit the settings of the car to have the behavior of the racing car. So in the original blueprint, this is not the original. I just prepared this for this a presentation. We have two cameras, but in the original one, I put like four or five cameras. I don't remember, but we change a lot of cameras when the guy is running, at the same time. So let me show to you guys. If I hit play, I can play with the car. It's a game car. So I think it's lagging a little bit because I'm have a ton of things open in my screen at the same time. So um, actually, this car to this short film was driven by artist from Light Farm. The guy is addicted to games and only plays sim games, sim car games. So the guy played with the car, and this is actually true. And the guy like wait for the car for 1 week and say, "Hey, here's the car, man." The guy, give it to me." And the guy spent like 2 weeks. I don't know, maybe 12 hours a day playing the track, and say, "Hey, man, it's good, you
The
can stop right now." No,
the
no, 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 no,
guy
no, no.
the guy's
Oh,
called Ramon. Ramon.
yeah, yeah. Like, no, one more time, man. Give me the blueprint, because I need to bake. No, 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 no. One more time. So the process to do this, we recorded the Ramon lab, and we bake the information in the blueprint, and we put this on sequencer. After this, all the animators have the opportunity to play with the rig. So let me show to you the rig. Let me find. I think is this. I have a lot of things open, at the same time.
That was a crazy idea, right? Because usually you
Yeah,
would just rig the standard car and put the chassis on top and simulate
yeah,
whatever like a normal rig. But I kind of thought about what if we put somebody to just pilot the car and that's it. That's the animation. But then you have to pretty much build a small game around the car
yeah.
physics, and F1 is very specific.
So for this case, as I said before, we need to deal with the game stuff and the animation stuff. For example, I need to make a simple rig because sometimes, the animators want to deal different for the camera. So in the accident, we have this kind of deformation. It's very easy stuff. The rig is very easy, in this case, it's very easy. So we have this, and I'm lagging a little bit, I know. Just to show to you guys, I have a control here. Inside the car is for the gear, and we have the controls right there inside. Let's go there. If you see, we have all the clutch, the brake, and the gas pedal, and here we have the gear. So this is a very easy stuff to do. We don't face challenge to do this, but the real challenge was to put everything working together with this kind of situation. So I talked a little bit about the car yet. Let me come back to this template. Okay. This is the physic asset of the car because a car that it's playable needs to be a physic asset to run the blueprint. So very simple stuff, just to show to you guys the collisions of the car. And this is the seatbelt. The seatbelt I made in other rig because I don't need this in every time in the project. So some shots I will need this rig, so I put only when we need it. So very simple stuff. This is running in the same rig as the car using this blueprint. Very easy. I love this node. Copy pose from mesh is the most powerful node in the engine, in my opinion, because you can put layers in the rig, So you can do 3 or 4 rigs and use this blueprint to put everything together inside the main blueprint. So very easy stuff. And to make the animation, we make this rig. Very simple stuff. We don't have any problems to do this because it's a very simple scheme. If you see, it's array. For each item, we project a new palette. So very easy stuff. Let me close this windows. This is a nice part to talk a little bit. The suspension of the car. This is a control rig, and we have a lot of nodes, but actually the same thing repeated over and over again. Is a lot of constraints. You see, it's position constraint, rotation constraint, and aim constraint. A lot of times the same thing. This is for the behavior of the suspension because we need to make these arms pointing in the right direction. For example, when the car go in a bump, we need to make these arms pointing in this correct place. So these constraints do this job to have this realism on the suspension of the car. So this control rig of the car is post-process in this blueprint. This is the post-process blueprint of the car. So it's very simple input, pose, and control rig. The control rig that I showed to you before. Let me see. Here's the blueprint. We talk about this. We have the car. This is the static mesh of the car. Skeletal mesh of the car, sorry. And here you can see that we have our blueprint on here. So I think this is about the car. If you guys have any questions about this, Tina will put my contact in some place, I don't know where, but you guys will have access to me. If you have doubts about the project, you can talk with me.
You make it sound
Mm,
too simple.
yeah, I'm trying to do
Right,
this
super
in a
easy.
I'm trying to do this in a very easy way, but they actually was a very trouble situation to deal with this suspension, a very complicated stuff.
You have
So
almost like a 1 ton of chassis
yeah,
car on top of four points of rigging that is connected to the wheel,
yeah,
and is also like running 300 miles per hour, whatever. And the road, you'd think that is a perfect road, but when you're too fast, like every minor a bump on the road, you could say it's a huge thing for this car that is going so fast. So the wheels, it's a pretty heavy thing going too fast on something that is like a wave, and then the wheels are always adjusting, and then you also have the torque force when you're too fast on a curve. That's gonna You need that simulation of physics to to simulate what actually happens, and that's really hard to animate by hand.
yeah,
You could
and
solve the wheels on the ground, but then you have to simulate what is the actual real physics
yeah.
should be handling.
The main part of the animation, the almost everything was made by Ramon. That's driven the car actually. So after this, we put
And also
another.
Max
Yeah,
coding, Ramon
yes.
complaining, oh, this car is like, this is not what happened. It should be faster on the curves, or it should be
Uh,
faster on the start on the
I think we,
sprint,
I think we
and
have a
Max was
video.
helping coding.
I think we have a video about Ramon driving the car. I think we can show this this- after I finish my presentation. I think we have um, a little part showing Ramon driving the car. So after I finish the car, I think this is a very easy presentation of what we done with the car. I start to work on the MetaHuman itself. So let me close this. This is the seatbelt inside Blender. Very, very easy stuff. So let me close this. I'm start to closing all the programs that I have opened and start to get better the transmission. So don't save. Okay. This is the original mesh that I received from the guy from ZBrush. It's Michael. Michael is a very good artist, do a lot of good stuff with ZBrush. So this is the base mesh. It's a very dense one. Let me show to you the process. After this, I go to wrap. Um, this is the original MetaHuman mesh. So we need to take this guy and make out these points. And after this, we need to make a wrap to make this mesh became Senna's mesh. Let's try to do this very easily. This is a very risk situation. Let's see if it's not break. So this is the fast wrapping. When I do this, I actually do the full wrapping situation. I'm do the fast just for showing purposes, but let's wait for 2 seconds. I think we'll finish. So and if you not crash, can you imagine this crash right now in live? Uh, Okay, we don't have the crash. Okay, great. So after this, we start to make some brush stuff. For example, this is the most important part when you do a custom MetaHuman, because every loop on this mesh is very important because I use a MetaPipe plugin to build the rig. So if you give you an example, if you do this and change the position of the loop, for example, this is very wrong. Let's just for show you the problem. Right here, if you see every vertex have index, and MetaPipe use this number to put the joints in the right place. So the way I deal with this is taking a lot of love and care about this process. I spend, I think, one day just tweaking the mesh, putting the loops in the right place. For example, if you see right here, we have a lot of problems right here. So I spend a lot of time doing this. So smooth a little bit and change a little bit the position to make the loops in the right place. So after I go to the Maya stuff, I will have a certain that will work the way I want. So this is the process of wrapping. I will close this one. Don't save. Let me show to you this one. Now, this is a Senna actually built. The process is done, just to show to you. Actually works very well inside Maya. We don't have difference from Maya to Unreal in this case. And our animation team actually make the animation inside the engine, and one part of the team work outside the engine. So for these guys, I prepared the rig for uh, the Maya situation, and after this, we export the animation to Unreal. So before I make the rig of the character, I start the process of making the pose driver. And to do this, I use this plugin, and let me show to you. It's here. It's Pose Wrangler. This is free and is awesome because you can make all the pose drivers by hand. And that's the case for me because I want to have good deformation. So when we finish editing all the solvers, and it's a lot of solvers, as you can see, we have a lot of the solvers. So you open one, edit, because we have a lot of poses for everyone. See, one is two poses, but we have the fingers, it's a long job to do. So I edit everyone, and at the end, we finish with the character making a good deformation. If you see, we have the biceps muscle moving properly. So this is the behavior that we want because we don't see the body of the character in action. But when we do the animation, we send the Alembic file to the Marvelous team to make the simulation of the cloth. So it's important to the mesh have a good behavior. We don't see the mesh, but it's important to have the good behavior. After this, I finished this process to make the post driver. After this, let me close this one. Here. I prepared the character to the animation team. If you see, it's full rigged, and I use advanced skeleton to do this because it's a one-click solution. It's awesome, and all the animators from Light Farm know this rig. So I use advanced skeleton, one-click solution, good to go. So the guys make the job. If you see in the movie, we have, I think, maybe 8 or 9 shots that was made by hand. So this guys made inside Maya, and after this, we sent to the engine. So inside the engine, talking a little bit about the character. It's a normal MetaHuman. So about the rigging, we use the normal rig, the MetaHuman rig, and we have the helmet. And let me show to you the helmet. The helmet is here. The helmet I made in Blender. So if you see, I take the spine of the MetaHuman off and put other bones. And I take the spine because I like to use copy pose from Mesh. And if you see, it's very dense because we put a lot of close-ups on this helmet. And we have the two kind of belts, the closed one and the open one. And this will be controlled inside the engine with invisible material. So the difference will be the material. So let's go inside the engine. Here we have the helmet. So we have the rig right here, but you can see the belt. If I change the material, let's change the material. Let's see. Okay, now you can see the belt. It's just invisible material, and it's an easy solution to solve the problem. So the this helmet has this blueprint, copy pose from mesh. So when I put this inside the MetaHuman blueprint, the helmet will follow the body. Um, and here we have the control rig for the animation team. So very easy stuff. This is not complicated. We have like controlling the helmet and this part of the belt. We have control, just a simple FK stuff, just for details, you know. Very easy rig. And we have a different situation about the simulation of the neck, you know, because if you see in this time, the guy, if you see a car from the modern era, the guy is like smooth ride, you know. But if you see in that time, the guy is like inside a blender, you know, like it's terrible stuff for the neck. So to deal with the neck stuff, I made a control rig. Let me see right here. Um, it's a very simple setup, just converting the curves, and I use a noise vector to deal with this. And the result is this: if the guy rotate this control, you guys will not see very well because I'm lagging a little bit, but the neck will shake. So as you can see, it's shaking a little bit. This is the situation of the neck shaking. We don't make simulation for this because this control rig holds very well. This noise, I have control of this noise, the speed of the noise, the amplitude of the movement. So I don't need to do this by simulation. This holding very well. So I think this
We
is the
shaking a meta-human head on top of a body attached to the car that is driven
yeah.
by another person as a video game,
Yes.
Lots
and
of
So
layers
with
there.
some cloth simulation on top of everything.
yeah,
Sprinkle.
and
In
this is
five
the
months.
and
In 5
this
months.
is and here we have some just for show to the other guys. You see, this is the staff of the track. It's just a regular MetaHuman guys. No secret about this. And this guys, Viviane will talk a little bit about the animation of this guy. Was a good solution that Diego, our lead animator, bring to us. And I think in my part is this, talk a little bit about how I made the MetaHuman, and I think now Viviane can show a little bit about the other parts of the process.
All right. But I might say that they are not just regular metahumans, that part of the stuff, because we gave them names and a backstory that might come
Yeah,
up on the video.
yeah. Oh my God.
I'm not sure if you know about it, but I can tell you later. A little bit, just complementing the rigging part. Here is a detail of MetaHuman face movements inside Maya. So just to show you guys that the animators had a pretty good view of what the face movements could do. Obviously, the main polishing for the face was made inside Unreal because we need to render and see the textures. But it was a pretty good solution because we had two teams working at the same time in Maya and also inside Unreal. Oh, I went back. Go forward. All right. And another thing that I'm not sure that I mentioned is that as we were talking about Senna, which is a person that existed and has this iconic face, we had to reach certain facial expressions that the family had to approve and recognize him in the film. So Andre and the team worked with specific blend shapes for the smile and for the blink that were super recognizable in Senna's face. So those blend shapes were made in Blender, I believe, or ZBrush, and then we input those, and they were triggered with the same controls that we have for the face, but they were under the hood triggering those extra blend shapes that summed up with the ones that come with MetaHuman for in order to reach the expressions that we needed and that made his family happy with his face and made us reach a higher level of delivery. And then with the character ready, all we could do was use mocap again because we had a time constraint and because Newton loves to act. So Newton was
Why
our
not?
actor and he rehearsed a lot because the idea was to be very close to the real movements that Senna did that day and that we have from the footages from that day. And we used the Qualisys technology, which is an optic motion capture technology um, for the body. And you can see here in the scenes that they are pretty close to what happened in the day. And for the face, we tested two ways to do it. We used the Live Link app on iPhone. Then we tested the way that could be recorded live inside Unreal using Take Recorder. But it was pretty good, but it didn't give us the detail that we wanted. And I think that right in the middle of the project, or when we were starting, MetaHuman Animator was launched, and we were super happy, and we tested it, and it gave us right what we wanted. So Milton made all the expressions in the mocap, and then we processed it inside Unreal and matched Milton's face with the points and calibrated it and trained it, and then here is the result. In the right side here, we can see we have a slight cleanup pass, I would say, for the blinking and some of the lip contact, but it's pretty much out of the box what we have from the mocap to the face. And we were super, super happy with this result. I'm not sure if Milton wants to talk about being Senna in the mocap.
Not really. Like I just like to save time, and I think when you're doing something very realistic, there are so many minor movements in your eyes and the way you blink, or yeah, Senna had something specific about his face. He had face paralysis, and half of his face wouldn't move the same way as the other half, and I think that's something we thought, like, how are we gonna do this? Is it gonna be the animation or the rigging? And I think in the end it's just you can put that in the acting, and just if you're laughing or doing something, just do with the right part of your face, which is in his case his left part would move more than the right part. Well, the coincidence, the funny fact is I am also like that. Like half of my face moves better on than the other. But anyways, I think every time you're doing realism, doing capture data, I think it's key. You could do it by hand, like Blizzard does with the Diablo cinematics. It looks very realistic, so realistic that people would ask if it is mocap. But I think having that capture data, it's better than not having it, because at some points we thought about reanimating the body or reanimating the head position, but we always kept like eye movements, or it was really funny because there was like the standard animation of his face was mocap that I did on my face. So we would be like riding the car on a random scene, and you'd zoom on his face and his eyes are acting, and you're like, what is this? Oh, this is a standard animation we capture for his face. and I think it definitely helps. It's like better having than not having it. It's like when you animate and you record your performance capture on a webcam. I think doing that with the iPhone and capturing face data, it's a massive head start. I know that most animators rather work with Maya, and Unreal is a little barrier, but I think we overcame that a bit with this pipeline, having the chance to animate in Maya or animating in Unreal. You could do it both ways, and we wanted to show the animators that the bridge wasn't that big, and I think we convinced some, but not so well with others. But I think it's a learning curve.
Yeah, and the animators were stunned with the quality because most of them that worked in this project, even inside Unreal, didn't have any experience or have had little experience working with motion capture. So the possibility of working with such a solid base, for a realistic animation, and those subtleties that the face has and that the body has, they helped a lot. And as Newton said, it wasn't an easy path for some of the animators, but they are a lot more open-minded after they see the results. And something that is pretty cool is that with the LiveLink app, if when you're doing the full body and face mocap, it doesn't, for some reason, the face doesn't come really good, you can just redo the recording of only the face for a specific expression and then just plug in into Unreal and replace it, and it works really well. Here is just showing a little bit of the controls and how the face moves inside Unreal. I'm just gonna go ahead and talk a little bit. We were already talking about the animation, and then as Andrea said and Newton said, our workflow was we had Maya animators, when we had Unreal animators for the mocap polishing, and we also had hand key animation for some shots that needed to be very specific. Um, we did, like, it was the start of our mocap pipeline, and we started to learn at this point that we needed a cleanup pass. So the pass that cleans up all the shaky parts and all the wrong data that comes in with the mocap in the body and the face. And then after that, there's this new step where it's the actual polishing, where the animators come just to give that touch of uh, weight and contacts and stuff. And I love this because here we compare the shots with the real scenes of the day. And when Andrea was showing me, we were just practicing and talking about the presentation, and he was showing the super simple rig for the seatbelts. And I was like, they're super simple. I'm not sure if we need to show them. And then I remembered this shot. When I saw this one for the first time animated, I thought that the seatbelts were simulated, and they are not. They are hand key animated. So this super simple rig with a very, very talented animator turned out to be this animation of the seatbelt, which everyone that sees the shot, sometimes people are just confused if it's an actual real shot or not. So yeah, that's why the seatbelt was there. And this one is a regular MetaHuman, as I said. Here's the shaking head that
I
was.
like this shot on the top right because I've seen this guy with the mustache and the sunglasses, and I was like, why people like the team chose to put a guy on a mustache and sunglasses, and then I look at the real footage. It's exactly like that. It's the crop is not showing that, but the guy is exactly like that. So mustache and sunglasses.
And yeah, and here is a little bit of the, you can see the shaking head and the hands on the steering wheel. So that rig that Andre talked about before, everything in place. We had a really rough time it looks simple right now, but to make the hands being attached and make Senna have the correct movements and deformations with the clothes inside the car, but we managed to do it. The hand, it doesn't stay the same all the time while holding the steering wheel. So we had an animator that was just refining the way he touches and how he grabs it. So that's again the level of detail that we went
And
through.
it shakes a lot as well. I think
Yeah.
I think we could have shake it even more, but it's very complex because half of the shake is also from the camera, right? But it feels like it's back in the day. It was a very heavy thing to keep turning.
Right. Yeah, here is just some polishing process inside Unreal Engine. Some of the animators are super happy with curve editing. Some of them are, oh my God, where are my tools that I'm used to in Maya and complaining. But we were all the time trying to hold hands and say bear with us because it's gonna come out great. And and it did. So thank you for all the animators that uh, passed through it. And this is a shot that I really like because this is a very iconic shot that we had in the original footage, which is actually right after he crashes that the staff comes to help him. But we didn't have time, nor we had animators because we had each animator working in a different scene for Senna, so we didn't have anyone to animate this shot. And I was like, oh my God, we're gonna have to let it go and cut this shot, and that's it. And then Diego again came up. He was studying, I believe it was Motorica, the name of the plugin. I think that you already did back in the day inside a reel with them. And that plugin just made this shot possible because all of those guys that are running here, they were animated with this AI tool where you just set the start position and the end position, and then you just tweak the curve to from linear to I don't know. You want them to start walking and then running and then stop, whatever movement that you want them to do, and then someday Diego came up and said, "I know how to do this shot," and he showed me, and I was like, what is this? How can you do that? And then it was just like magic. So we put the shot back in the film, and then he did this test and he posted in the animators group and he said, "Hey guys, do you want to learn how to animate with just 5 or 6 keyframes?" And then he showed the shot and everyone was stunned about it. So those are the kind of solutions that in a really short time period, when they show up and they're possible to implement, it's like it's amazing. It's just amazing.
When I look at that shot, I just remember that the car hit the wall and it broke the neck and the front left wheel. And you know, it sounds simple, but you need another model, and you need to spin the wheel, and it's a whole little project just to make that simple shot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, car animation. This was the challenge we were talking about, because we already had to model Monaco from '88. That was like an epic adventure for the modelers. We had to build all the cars and model them from scratch, and then we had to animate this MetaHuman on top of a car going super fast. Because one thing is animating something that is dancing on the spot. Another thing is animating something that is running really fast with a camera attached that is also moving. And then you need this realism on the car and how it brakes and turns and the physics and the suspension. This was one of the first F1 cars, if not the first, using new suspension systems. So you see the car shaking a lot, but in fact is leveling to the bumpy road. And we had done a project for Microsoft before that we animated a car by hand, and it's really painful. It requires you to understand how that specific car works and um, how fast it needs to go before it spins around and all that knowledge that you need somebody that understands F1 cars. And then we brought Ramon. Ramon is he plays simulation video games like a lot of people, and he loves Senna as well. So I thought, hey Ramon, do you think you can remake Senna's time? I think it was 1 minute and 20 something, and I was like, hey, can you do that track exactly like Senna would do it, or as close as possible? And I think he trained a lot, and then at some point he could manage to get really close. But one thing is doing a 2 minute animation. Another thing is building this video game that looks realistic as the best F1 simulation games. That's a whole nother thing. And Ramon was always complaining about, oh, it's not turning exactly how it should be. The gear is, he was complaining about a lot of technical stuff because he's used to play video games, F1 video games. So he was very demanding, which I think was good. But at some point, I was just like, "Hey, Ramon, if you can run the track,
Just let it go. Just let it
if it's
go.
not perfect,
Let it
doesn't
go,
really
man.
matter because it's an animation. We're gonna have the camera shake, the motion blur, and all that. So, we went to that point that was good enough. But we totally feel that if we wanted to evolve one day to make a car racing game, if that's the case, it's totally doable. We would have to go back to the garage and rethink everything to be efficient. But for the animation, we wanted the wheel to spin together and have that physics and the heavy feeling of the car, and also how it crashes. And you see, like it bumped to a wall there. Um, in the beginning, when we every time we bumped to a wall, it would like fly or do crazy bugs, and that was something we had to consider as well while Andre and Max. And Max is also rigger and a coder and many other things. He was working, I think, in Blender with Andre to create this rig and to understand the tricks we could do with coding in Unreal as well to make the changes that Ramon was asking as a pilot to the Unreal mechanics, you can call it.
Yeah, if you take a look here, all this UI with the time and the time for each sector that he was running from the track, this was all Max coding for visual feedback for Ramon to try to reach the same time that Senna did in the actual race. So this is crazy.
And Senna, like his family mentioned that, yeah, like people would take pictures from him, and if they stay in the same spot and took the same picture around the same time, the picture will look the same. And they got like these negatives from these old photographer from Senna, and a lot of shots would be the same. And then he would be like, "Hey, there's no like copies. Each one of these original shots. It's just that he would race the same way every time, like a machine." And I think Ramon studied a lot of videos from him in Monaco, the way he raced and how he used to like brake and speed at the same time on the curve. Um, Completely legal if you're doing that in a kart get racing. But it's awesome. Like when you like brake and speed at the same time, the car is always like active to the sprint, and that's also something that he was trying to mimic. But at some point, it's just an animation, a video game. It was just a side project for us, but it helped us to focus the animation force, which wasn't like too many. We had a good team, but not too many. Not definitely far from ideal. um, but the animators could like focus on Senna's performance, even though we mocapped, it doesn't mean that my mocap is far from perfect. I was trying to mimic a motion from Senna, and we had a short limit time to do it. So it wasn't like I had time to rehearse and to try to mimic and check if it was working or not. So a lot of scenes, like the one he's like walking from the car and looking back, I couldn't manage to do it right. But then we reanimate the body frame by frame, following the video reference, and then we could keep some of the face expressions. Some shots you nail it, and you need little work. Other shots you have more work to do. And then VFX. Okay, we had this effects that I dream about, because Senna is always talking about this feeling that he had in the tunnel. It was like out of body experience, whatever. Like he felt in the flow. Everything he was doing was so fast and so complex that he wasn't thinking anymore. He was just going. And I knew that I had to represent that in an artistic way, and to show a feeling, right? Because if I just show the car inside the tunnel, you're not representing what he is feeling. He's feeling like a tunnel of emotions that um, I think maybe it's like the fear of failing, or the ambitious thoughts. Um, um, Also, like the wow, mesmerizing effect that you're going so fast and doing everything right. I think it might be like such a ridiculous amount of adrenaline, and and you're like so close to perfection, but also you're like getting close to your failure. And this was one of his experience with that. Like he mentioned this lap as being the one that it humbles him, or the one that made him think that, I don't know, I think he found his limit, how fast he could go in that specific track. And 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 he was really good with the words, like a poet. And so we try to do something that it felt like a wind tunnel, like lines, or double exposure kind of thing, like a low speed camera would do. If you put your speed way low, and you're going really fast, you'd see the lights brushing on the camera. And I try to do that, and I call Ares, our um, elf, magic elf, and he's the TD, the technical director, the one that we would like, hey, Ares, this is possible. How can we do this? How you suggest to do this? And then he was like, oh, let me do this. It's gonna look great. And he's done this really nice effect in Lumen. It was very sad when we realized it wouldn't work in path tracing. And in path tracing, for some reason, all the lines will be straighter, like he was going way fast, like his speed of light or something. And we lost those wiggles and nice movements, and we didn't have the time to go back and make it work in path trace or anything. And we thought, hey, I think this is looking good. I don't think we should go back or anything. It's looking good. But if we could go back, I would try to figure it out why it wasn't working on path tracing. But at the same time, I think there is a it's just different. It's different from what we envision, but I think it's also nice. And this was done in Unreal. It's using a particle effect, and that particle is running lines, um, and the lines are straight. They just go around the car, and we've done that model in Blender, just a simple model to deform the lines. And also the lines, they have um, when they go far from the source, they would wiggle more, like a elastic band or something. uh, and that would give you that feel of tunnel vision and the lighting. And I think in the end, it looked pretty nice. this is one scene that is going so fast and there's so many things happening that even the viewport wouldn't give you the exact look. In Lumen, it's kind of okay. You see, like there's more wiggle, but in path tracing, um, yeah, it's one of those scenes you have to render to see how it actually looks. And then talking about VFX, we have Houdini in the process as well because the car, it's always like releasing smoke, or it could be the rubber of the tires on the ground. It could be a brake, like always like braking a rocket and accelerating a rocket. If the ground is dry, you're gonna see some smoke for many reasons, and also you would see fire every time you change a gear and you lower a gear, that would sparkle a little explosion. So it's very common to see smoke and fire behind the cars, and also artistically speaking, that gives a nice touch of speed and the feeling of speed as well. And it tricks you that you could think, oh, is this CG? Is this a game? But then when you add Houdini effects, it helps a lot. We try to use Embergen, we try to use Niagara, but I feel like we have very small number of people working with simulation in Houdini. When you narrow that down to Unreal, that would be even less. And it's just that sometimes it would be nice to try directly in Niagara and craft that, but it's hard to find people specialized in that, and especially in Unreal. It's hard in general, but in Unreal it's even harder, and it's something we tried out. It would look good in Lumen, but also there's the issue with path tracing that we end up choosing output, and in the end we end up comping the VFX on the shot instead of using in Unreal, unfortunately. Because you'd think, oh, it's easier to just comp, but then you have the whole composition process, and it's just changing the responsibility. But I would love in the future to make that possible. You know, having something that is moving really fast, releasing complex VDB, or especially if that would be Niagara, that would be even better. If not, if we learn Niagara well enough, and if we use it right, that maybe we don't even need to go to Houdini and import Alembics or VDB. It would be awesome to do it directly in Niagara, but we just lack the experience in that area at the moment.
Right. We did a lot of tests during the development of the whole film, but it came up to the point that we needed to make a decision and we didn't want to let go of the effects. And then we went the other way around to do the way we knew it was possible in our time frame. But yeah, it would be awesome to have those made in Unreal.
Oh, I think you're muted, Milton.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm going to take over, talk about lighting. I think I'm a photography director and a post production artist, and lighting was something that I always wanted to learn in CG, and I learned it in Moto and Blender, XSI, and other softwares, and it was always a pain. Even 3ds Max, as a user, I was unexperienced, and the process wasn't so easy. And I think the best thing about Unreal is probably lighting and post production. And I think, yeah, you can show a little bit of the process of lighting his face and doing it in path tracing, which isn't as fast as Lumen, but for skin, if you're going for realistic results and you're not a like a real magician, and you're doing, of course, animation or stills, a path tracing is still unbeatable. Unfortunately, it's way slower, and way heavier on your viewport as well. Not only final renders, but the workflow is heavier. But you don't need to be you don't need to know a lot about the software to output something that looks great. I think in Lumen you need to know a lot more about the console commands and how make it efficient in the viewport, but also amazing in the renders. And there is a lot more knowledge in there than in path tracing. Path tracing is like it is what it is. It renders, it takes a long time, and you get what you would get in any other softwares. But Lumen is like, okay, it's way more complex in a way, but it gives you the final holy grail of 60 FPS, and you can see in real time. Everybody can run it in slower machines, or you have the good things out of it, but it's not so easy. It's definitely not so easy, especially if you think about realism, right? Most of the video games and it would be stylized, and you wouldn't need that level of realism. But in the case of if you want to go to the edge of what Unreal can do, I think path tracing still is the way. But I hope one day it changes. Either path trace gets faster or Lumen gets closer to path tracing, visually speaking. Um, yeah, and and people usually think about rendering times. Oh, okay, you guys use Unreal, so you might get faster renders, but you can pay render farms. You can have heavy machines during the render. I think what is the best thing about Unreal for me while doing lighting in camera is how fast you can visualize not only the still frame of a video, but the video running. You're doing changes in real time with your camera and lenses and aperture, and you're animating that through the sequencer, and you also changing the exposure on your post-production tab, and you're changing the dust on the lens, or you adding a specific custom shape to the bokeh of the camera, or you adding some anamorphic transformation to the lens and make your squeeze frame, and that changes everything for the cinematic purpose, because the inside of the image is kind of the same, but then you stretch 20% to the left and 20% to the right, and it gives you a very cinematic look with elliptical shapes on the bokeh. uh, you also have like the fog and the atmospheric effects that are so heavy in path tracing, and especially in other softwares, that people would end up choosing rendering separately and compositing later, just because it's so heavy. Or even depth of field, which is something so simple, right? You think, oh, depth of field, I want to have something out of focus in the foreground, out of focus on the background, and focus to focus on whatever I want. But that's also something heavy to do in a traditional way. You would sometimes render full animations without depth of field, just because it's too heavy, and then apply the depth of field using zdef and nuke, just because it's the only way you can do it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to render it. And Unreal does it all in 4K if you want, in path tracing or Lumen, and it does it way faster, even the path tracing, and it does it way faster, the viewport as well. Because for me, that's the best part. It's not the final render, but how fast you can see the changes that you're making, especially in post production. So I was doing the lighting and blocking the lighting, just shifting the sun, and you think, oh, it's just the sun, it's just one source of light. But the sun in Unreal is completely different. It affects the atmospheric height, it affects the fog, and it's all real physics. It's mimicking nature exactly down to the math formulas. So that's why when you lower your sun, the fog turns warmer, um, and it's something so simple. But in other softwares, you have to fake it. You have to understand how that works in real life, and then try to fake that. And you need to be a good lighting artist and also a good post production artist to understand all those disciplines and to apply to your final look. But in Unreal, you press like 5 buttons: the sun, the fog, the sky, the what else? The volumetric clouds, or the volumetric fog, or what else there is. I think that's all. And the post production volume. And you press like those 5 buttons or 6 buttons, and you have it all there, ready to go. And you're just changing your lenses, your aperture, and playing around the system that is mimicking reality in a way that it saves you a lot of time. And then yes, you're just moving the sun and blocking your lighting very quickly, and getting a preview since the blocking stage, the layout phase. You're getting your first previews looking great, and that's just like the first previews, just to see the how it's blocking now. But it already looks good because you have all those things that are expensive in a traditional workflow, which is depth of field, fog, even lens flare. You would never like put lens flare from the CG software. You do that in After Effects and use fancy, expensive plugins to do that. Red Giant or the Video Compiler one, optical flare, and it's mimicking flare. It's not an actual flare. And I think Unreal, it's also a simulation. It's also mimicking, but it mimics so much better. And all the changes you make on your lenses affects everything, and it's all connected in raw, uh, and you're changing like real things interacting with each other. And and it's not like that in a traditional way. I think even if you're a Disney or ILM, there is no computer that can run everything together and render in path tracing. Um, you take like years and 2,000 computers. And I think Unreal is, I don't know, they sort it out, right? I always thought one day renders will be real time. Everybody thought that. And it felt like a distant dream, right? One day it will be maybe Maya or Cinema 4D or Moto, whatever. It's going to give us real time render. And Blender did Eve, and others did other things. Even Unity was putting up some good realism work. And then Unreal 5 came with Nanite and and now with like multi-light thing, and it's been doing like crazy stuff that I think nobody expected it. Because one thing is imagining a traditional software evolving to become real time, but nobody was thinking that a real time video game software it would like go up so fast in a what you can call it, like quality of rendering. I never thought that would happen, and but when it did, it kind of makes sense that some software that is focusing on efficiency would eventually become pretty, but the other softwares were focusing on the pretty renders are definitely not focusing on efficiency. So it's way harder to go back and work your way out throughout making software that is efficient, because you're focusing on being pretty since the beginning. And it kind of makes sense to me that is Unreal. It's been working since like whatever, PlayStation 3 or something, Xbox. I don't know what was the first Unreal Tournament video game, but I know it was pretty old. And since then, focusing on consoles, even they're not focusing on PC, they're focusing on consoles. So it kind of makes sense, but it's still mesmerizing to me. and it's so much fun being a photographer, filmmaker, working in Unreal, and see that you don't need to know much, especially in path tracing. In Lumen, there's way more learning to do, especially with the console commands and making lights efficient and make them look like they look in path tracing. But with path tracing, it's ridiculous. You're just playing with the sun size or the how much the sky will reflect, and you can still use HDRs. You can use the actual volumetric clouds from Unreal, but in this case, we thought it was kind of heavy on the render with everything that we had already. And the clouds, it's all like out of focus and motion blur. I love the Unreal clouds, but they're heavy, especially on path tracing. So we end up choosing a standard flat HDR. But I think when clouds become a bigger part of the project, it's definitely better to use the Unreal clouds, and they're evolving. I think two things that you can already see that we use pretty much every software, right? We use Maya, we use Blender, ZBrush, Substance, and Houdini, but and Maya to animate or Blender even, and we try to like keep those bridges open. But the truth is, like, the bridges are not open. Everything is very tricky to transfer from one software to the other. I think all the softwares are evolving with USD, but it's still kind of a mystery. It sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. And then in the beginning, for us to even like customize MetaHuman, it all felt like we were hacking the software or doing something illegal. Like, oh, Andre found out how to trick that and open here and that. But I think in the future, it's gonna get easier. It's just that I think when you're like surfing the wave from the start, you're gonna get the rough part as well, and but also it's rewarding to render something that doesn't need post production, because the post production you're making, your vignetting, your bloom, glare, or um, your double exposure, your shift your channels, or the noise you add, all those things, even like the shape of the optical flare, or the dirt you put on the lens, or if it's raining or not, and how the rain kicks on the lens, like so many things that you can dream of rendering all together in one pass. And I don't, maybe it's possible, but for me, I never seen it. Like what we've done with this project is something I never seen before, personally. And um and i i think it would be possible to do in other softwares, more traditional softwares, but it would be way more painful and way heavier, and it would require a much bigger team and and especially better computers, because we would be running the traditional pipelines with a project that is already heavy to Unreal. And Unreal, I think it's made to deal with heavy stuff. And we were like pushing the 4090s to the burn phase. I think I have the best video card I can buy. I have a 4090 24 gigs, and we were pushing to that limit in some scenes, especially the ones showing skin and simulated cloth from Marvelous Designer, which it inputs as heavy alembics. I know that Marvelous Design and Unreal are like getting together, but still is pretty heavy to bring cloth to Unreal. It's something we dream about, to one day to be as light as the hair physics in Unreal is today. And I think we're dreaming about um, cloth simulation and maybe actual simulation in general from Houdini. If that becomes like easier and easier, um, that would be really cool. And here you can see like focusing process, same things you get with other softwares. It's just that seeing that in real time, and it's a video, that fast in your computer. Um,
One
I don't
thing
know.
that about the lighting and all this non-linear process that we we work with, that's not usual to us because we are very pretty much used to a linear process of CGI production. And this non-linear project helped us a lot in many ways, as Milton said, and also we had a partner. It was not a client, but it was the family, and we had to show them the updates of what we were doing, and they were not familiar with the CGI process. So we were able to show them in a pretty early stages how the colors would come out, how the light intentions would be, so they could figure out how we were thinking about the movie and how Milton was thinking about the light and the cameras, and also Gabriel Gabo, which is our animation director that joined us as well to work with the cameras. So it helped a lot to show to whoever was approving or had to be on board with us in the process to see in the best possible way with colors, lights, even if it wasn't the final stage, but they could see it. And it helps a lot to have them on board with us and approving and knowing that it's going to come out in a good quality.
Let me share my screen and open Unreal and hope for the best that it won't crash. Just like Unreal Engine, we at LifeFarm use Helix Core. It's just a nice versioning software to make sure that if you're making changes on in the software, that's only you, and you have to check in and check out. And I don't know. I think it's the only way we can do it with Unreal. You need something like at least like a GitHub or um, what's the name? Plastique. But I think we end up choosing Helix Core. It's the same that Unreal uses it, and it works pretty well. In this case, like being honest with everyone, we had so many issues with this project because we're doing something like too ambitious for our um for the time being when we were kind of learning the process still, the new versions of Unreal, new things to try it out, and we chose to do something too ambitious. But then I think it worked out well. Most of the team, they were like, never again, like we'll never do this again this way, like we need to think better, we need to do better. And if you think about it, it was a little group of people testing experimental stuff with a very high ambition. And then how can I complain about the result? I think I can only like be grateful that we actually did it. Because in the beginning, like it felt like a few times that maybe we wouldn't be able to do it. So here, when you open the project, it's very light because it's Lumen and it's made to be light, so the animators can open pretty easily. You can see some of the rain effects we were testing that end up only working in Lumen and not in Path Tracer. In the end of the day, we have to choose what we would be focusing on. Otherwise, it would be like, hey, let's spend a lot of time trying to figure it out why the rain wouldn't work in Path Tracer. And I know in the new Unreal 5.4, 5.5, the difference in materials from Lumen to Path Tracer smaller, but still, it's a completely different thing. If you're doing something that the output it's path tracing, you kind of have to forget about the issues you're getting in Lumen and vice versa, because it's kind of hard to get the same results on both. I think the techniques are completely different, and it's not just how you render it. It's the way a Lumen is trying to simulate something heavy to make it look like it's light. It's a different thinking, different tricks, and yeah, I can't complain. So here we're opening the main scene. This is Monaco, is the heaviest scene of the project. This is loading 1988 high resolution models of buildings and and cars and also characters and the crowd. Thank God we don't have the VFX in there. Imagine if it was like loading VFX heavy VDB simulations from Houdini or Alembics or whatever. That's one thing I would hope that Unreal. I know Unreal and Marvelous Design is getting together. I think they should do something similar to Houdini, make it so simple to just like send to Unreal, and is working good in there with the shaders and everything. But the truth is, it's painful if it's still for our level of knowledge at least. And the biggest problem is this car is running too fast, and that's a chaos formula on top of everything that is already hard to develop. You make the car go too fast, so then your cameras are attached to the car, your VFX attached to the car, and everything is so chaotic. It's hard to understand what's happening. Gonna open this scene. This is one of my favorite scenes because it's a kind of a POV of the camera behind him. And this is playing at kind of 30, 40 FPS. If I wasn't sharing my screen, it would be a little better than that, but it's not too bad. And this is cinematic in Lumen. When you go to Path Tracer, this will kind of lower a bit, but not too much. It depends on if it's showing like glass and skin and heavier stuff. I think when it's showing only, metal cars and rubber and things that are not too reflexive, I think it's easy on the engine. I know this because if I open a scene that Senna is a close up of his face, and you have like the transparent material of the eyes and the skin and the subsurface scattering, all that together, speaking, talking, that would be the heaviest render. That would be like 5 FPS, like sometimes like 1 FPS, depending on the scene, if the camera is also moving. But this is what you get with Path Tracer viewport. It's not too bad. When you play, you can see what's happening. It can be playing and you can still move around. It's very noisy, but it's the closest you get to the final render. And then we can always pause it, change to Lumen, and then have something that it's not made to look like the final thing. It could look way closer, but it's not made to look like. It's more like for us to travel faster in the viewport, see how the animation is working out. And for some scenes, if you're doing like focusing, lenses, camera changes, all that, I think working in Lumen in the viewport is as close as you're gonna get to the path tracing, and it's still very light, very easy to go around and test things out, and the animation is playing, and still have all the main ingredients, the light direction, the depth of field, the fog, and the sky of the light of the sky. And then here you can see how we focus the modeling to be more high res if it's something we're seeing close by. Although if you go if you go very far, you're gonna see the buildings back there. They're gonna be way lower resolution. It's something that becomes like a motion blur in the end. But then like everything that is close by, we need to model in higher resolution. And I one thing that I love about Unreal, it's definitely not the render time. It's how I'm on a scene like this, and then I control space, and I want to see how this scene looks like, especially compared to the one that I'm doing right now. And then I like double click, and I'm already there, seeing it running like in 30, 40 FPS in Lumen, and this is crazy, and then it makes you think, like, because usually in the normal pipeline you would do this in the end. You do the camera in the beginning, and then you do the lighting in the end, and that's it. You go to post-production, there is no changing. But then if it's all there, like you'd think, but what if what if I change the sun and make it lower, and like there's a lot of what ifs. And when you're working with craft, I think time is the king, right? Until you have the time, you should be crafting, because crafting takes time, and there is no way you can craft one thing to an ideal point. And especially because you could end up doing something that you think, oh, this is looking great, and then you come tomorrow and you think, oh no, I think it's too dark, or I think your opinion could change. And I think that's also crafting. Like you could think something, and then next day you change your mind, and you think it can look better, and then you show the team and everybody loves it. And having the freedom to craft lighting and post-production, it kind of it divides it in phases, I think. It divides on that phase that you first blocking something out, and then you attach your camera to the car, and then you just place the light in there in a nice spot, and then you put it to render just to see how it's shaping out. But your opinion is gonna change throughout the time, and you're gonna prioritize all the things you have to do. And then if it comes to the time that you have a little time to craft the lighting that you just blocked, you're gonna do it. And that might not be the end, because until the end of the process you might come back to this scene, and you can do changes in post-production that it's gonna affect the lighting, or vice versa. And I think having this real-time post-production, for me that always worked in post-production in here, and I'm like adjusting aperture and exposure and vignetting and optical flare to get to the final look out of the viewport. Like I feel like a straight out Unreal fan. People are like, have you heard about Unreal today? I'm like that person, like CrossFit people that would that would like come and say, hey, have you have you seen like a viewport as pretty as this, and running this fast? And we have this inside wars in live farm, even with the artists that can do Unreal and Maya and Blender, and there are artists that can do it all. So imagine the debates about what one software does better than the other. Or and in the end of the day, I think there are pros and cons, but for me personally, I can see why I'm such a fan, because I'm doing things. I'm gonna talk in a way that just so it's easy to understand. I'm doing things that I cannot, or I don't know how to do in other softwares. I'm talking about the main 3D softwares. I don't know how to do it, or how to render. It'd be too heavy or too difficult or too whatever. And I'm doing all that in a video game software. I don't. It's not that, but just to my mom to understand, I'm doing it in a video game software, and this is ridiculous. It almost sounds like a slap on the face or something, because I wouldn't know how to do this in a different way, and have such a smooth workflow experience and being able to craft. Because in any other software, I would have my time to craft. And I know in this specific scene, one day before the delivery, I wasn't even in my home, and I asked my Marcelo, the lighting and look dev artist. I was like, hey Marcelo, I'm not enjoying this scene. We had the camera underneath the car, and I was like, hey, can we make it more like video game, more like behind the car, like it's following the car, so we have that perspective in one point of the film. And he's done it like one day prior the rendering. Like the team was like, "Can you do that? Oh my god, that's crazy, risky, whatever." But it would take like something like 20 minutes to render in path tracing. Some scenes would be longer, it would be like 40 minutes, an hour. Other scenes would be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, kind of like the average for 2 3 second shots. But yeah, things that we've done wrong, like, and I don't know how to do it right. We had to attach the cameras to the car, and the car is a blueprint. That means you have cameras, different cameras inside the car. And that means when you're working on a scene that is kind of attached to all the others. So I'm working on a scene here, and Alex Core is telling me there are 22 assets unsaved. So every time like we've done something, anything, you'd be like changing like other 25 different files or sequences. And that's one thing we'd have to go back to understand, like, and really think through like how we could have done it better. But like my partner used to say, we can do it better on the next one. I think it's done, it's here, it's out. We got like something like 1.5 million views in our Instagram, sharing with the Senna family that approved the whole thing in 5 months. And we have like a little team. Even though there are many people in the credits, the core team was very little. I think we've done like miracles. The team is very critical about themselves, and they think, oh, I could have done this better, or this scene doesn't look too well. Oh, it's a shame that this was working in Lumen, but it's not working in Path Tracer. For me, inside, as a director, I was just pushing the limits and see as a, as a little personal challenge for us, if we could do something that I wasn't sure if we could do it, and we did it. So for me, in the end of the day, like I'm just grateful that we made it, and I don't care about the mistakes or or if some shots are too heavy than others, or I just think having that deadline of 5 months put us on the right mindset, because we could have wasted a year or a year and a half and not have that rush of we have less time than we should. And I think that put everybody on the right mindset, even though it was like running a race for us.
Mm.
I think the team enjoyed the process. We learned a lot. The animators learned a lot. We kind of connected the team better, because back then was the Unreal people and the animators, and I felt that we
We
connected
fought
better. We
together for
we fought
this
together a
purpose,
war.
right? Yeah, I think that my take on this is there was this challenge, and it's almost like a metaphor because Senna runs his best lap and then he crashes. And what happened was almost the same thing. We ran as fast as we could, doing the best we could with a lot of crashes on the way, a lot more than one, and we learned a lot at the end, which is like a metaphor, the same message that the film has. So uh, we now the team can look back and feel proud of what we achieved, and also look back and say, "Oh, we could do this better now," and then jump in the next project and just make it better. So it was I was very happy to be part of it and to see the team overcome everything that they needed to overcome in order to achieve this result.
So Matt is the first realistic thing we ever did. We chose a Rio and we made it. Uh, for me, it's like an A plus. For the team, it's like, oh, the model could have been better, the rig or the simulation, whatever, or the whole genie didn't work, or the scenes were heavy, and we were like saving 25 things at a time. You could like think negatively about, if you retrospect about and think about the things you could have done better. But for me, I wouldn't say anything bad, because thinking through if I could put on one line what is this project for me. It was just a play that we made that worked out, and we learned a lot, and we made something that was impossible for us to do, and we made it. So it's easy now to see where we can go from here and what we can do better next, and how we can make the projects lighter, how we can make Lumen look closer to Path Tracer, whatever. If that even makes sense in some situations, because we're working with animation, so it doesn't need to necessarily run real time. But also have solutions like this, like the whole tunnel scene. It should be like just a curve, and creative ideas like, oh, let's create a carousel so the car is always running in this infinite tunnel, and then we can make shots out of that. Like, I think those are the best moments for me. Like, it's just figuring out how we gonna do it. It sounds simple once you sorted it, but in the beginning it's like, how are we gonna animate the car? How are we gonna make the tunnel feel like a long trip? How are we gonna put this MetaHuman on top of a car? How are we gonna make the cameras? Are they gonna be attached to the car, or are they gonna be outside of the car on a sequencer? And all the mistakes we might have done. And I know most of them, but I'm sure there are plenty that I don't have any idea. But that's it for lighting. I mean, I'm talking about lighting, but also post-production. I think it's kind of all together here. And even camera. Usually the animators would do the camera, and they did it in the first ones, but also like we've done lots of adjustments and reshaping cameras straight in Unreal. We had some issues like bringing camera back and forth. I think there are differences in the way that Unreal understand camera aspects, lenses. Also, we use the squeeze frame from the anamorphic effect. I think that all messed up the pipeline, like going back and forth on Unreal, Maya, or other softwares. But I think that's it. I think we pushed the limits. We learned our limits. We learned the machine or the engine limits, and I'm so proud of what we did. And definitely, it makes you wonder that if you're doing something realistic, and if you want like to have an easy mocap connection to capture face data easily, um, and if you want to render that in your own machine and not rely on render farms, or they're expensive, they're very expensive. So as a company, I think that uh, definitely if we're doing realism, it'd make a lot of sense to host in the engine. But not only that, uh, we've we've done. I think realism is the hardest, right? But I think if you can do realism really well and efficiently, possibly you would wonder that cartoon and stylized versions would also be more efficient, and make more sense to be done in Unreal. I just think there is this movement with Unreal, and like many artists like shifting, learning, skeptical and stuff. But I hope that more people study Unreal, because I can totally see more projects being done with Unreal. I think that's where the market is going. I got a crash closing the software. It's a
It was at the
classic,
end. So.
because there's so many things attached that when I close it, I probably got into like a cap of the video card or something. But that's it. That's it. That's with the lighting and post production. Of course, we did a little Da Vinci to color grade a little bit. Of course, we comp the VFX with the car to have the fire and smoke, but what you see straight out of the render is very close, very very close to the final result. So most of the color grading and post production you do in Nuke or After Effects or even DaVinci, it's getting straight out of the render. And that was something that I focused more as an artist, because the things that I look and have more expertise are camera, lighting, and color, especially color grading, and being able to play with all these together in the viewport. I don't know. I felt completely addicted to the software. It's definitely my favorite. I will totally help to like have you listened to Unreal Word today, and knock on your door and ask more people to learn it, because the only problem at the moment with Unreal to me is the lack of staff, lack of talent working with Unreal, but it's definitely changing.
Yeah. It's awesome to hear that it was so helpful for this project, because I do think, most people, kind of like how you were saying earlier, think of it as a video game engine and not really for these hugely rendered projects like this. It's shifting a little bit now, especially things like virtual production and that, but we're approaching the upward curve. We still got a ways to go.
Yeah, well, I know some people in Unreal. I see where things are going, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna happen, right?" Or yeah, they don't talk about it. I know there are many things like there's a lot of investment, and definitely people think, "Oh, one day Unreal is gonna get there." No, Unreal is already there with the movie industry, and then winning Oscars and stuff with Batman and all the virtual production movement. I think kind of started there to become mainstream to cinema. But also, if you think about pre-visualization, previews, if you think about previewing your stuff before you see it, you go back to Lion King, and Disney was doing, other companies were doing way before, but using more to pre-visualize data instead of actually rendering. But now with the LED volumes and not only that, like some people also think that, oh, Unreal is just for virtual production, just to like show things on the screen. But it's much more than that. The thing is, I can see a lot of this movement of investment and interest going to Unreal, not only in the video game industry, but also in the advertising and filming. Uh, I think there's a lot of opportunity there to save money, to make things prettier, faster, happier. Um, and also, I wonder what's going to happen when AI renders kind of connect to Unreal, and if that's going to be a thing or not. But I don't know. That's a talk for the future.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you all so much for walking through your presentations and everything. First, I want to make sure I'm not interrupting anything, right? There's not anything else you want to
No,
pull up the view tab? Okay.
we actually went through all of our topics. If anything, for the folks that came later, if you want to show like the making of and maybe finish with the film, that would be a sweet end.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely go through. I feel like we have to, right? We went through the whole process of showing what you all went through to make it. It wouldn't make sense for us to not show the final product, right? Before we close out, if you're up for it, there were 3 questions we pulled from chat here that I think are really interesting. If you're up for
Awesome.
those super quick, and then we can run the final video.
Sure thing.
Awesome. All right. So the first question here was because you mentioned you did a couple of breakdowns of several of the different scenes, especially how even some of them were able to get pulled back in. But one of the questions was, which scene took the most time to complete out of all of them?
I know I know the shot that took the most time to render, but it wasn't necessarily the hottest. The shot that he looks back, I think I can. Well, if I open here, it's gonna be heavy as.
Don't do
I,
it.
I think
Just don't.
you're gonna see it. You're gonna see it in the film when she plays it. At the scene that he looks back when he takes the helmet out and he looks back, that's like 1 FPS in the viewport. It's so heavy because you have the crowd at the back, even though they are still models, they are not moving. They are heavy, and they are metahumans, and also the skin and the hair. And the hair is actual physics from Unreal. We did not use simulation. We could turn on the simulation and have the hair moving a little bit, but in the end it was late on production, so we thought, oh, it's looking good already with the hair still, we don't have to turn it on. But that's one feature from Unreal that I really like, simulating the hair with a very low cost of GPU. But I think the scene that took the much more time to make was definitely the tunnel scenes, because you have Senna, and he should be moving slightly with the eyes and everything. So you have to animate that. And then he's holding the steering wheel, and that's attached to the model is attached to the steering wheel because of the coating of the rigging and everything. But also you need to animate and reanimate, polish um, the slight movements of the machine, and you have to reanimate that and polish on top of a baked animation. Also, the car is a baked animation because it came from the simulation. And then you have all these lights coming through. If you think about all the things that were involved to build the tunnel scenes, you would appreciate more next time you see it when you play it. But yeah, the tunnel scenes were not so heavy to render, but to get to the point that would to the final look, it wasn't so easy.
There was also a sequence that took a little bit of time to be put together, because the sequence of the crash, because we had the whole recording of the lab running, but for the crash, as Milton said, the car flew, the car bumped, the car like hit the floor and then went the other way. So we had to edit and the animation for like 3 or 4 shots that put together this sequence, which sounded simple when we started, and then we need to add a rig to in order to make the wheel turn in a different way that it was when Ramon was playing. So that sequence took a little bit of time to put together and have the sensation of the crash the way you wanted to achieve.
Yeah. I kind of hope that you all kept some footage of the car just kind of like absolutely flying off out into space and
Oh, I'm sure if we play it again, like it's not gonna be hard to find a bug like that.
No, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do
we'll just know. We'll know. We'll know it
it's
exists.
a fun memory to build, it's a fun
Yeah.
Other question here for y'all is, did you use any other features that were experimental at the time, like nanite? Or did you use anything like LODs for your models? Or were they all super high fidelity for the full render?
Unfortunately, we did not have the time to build LOGs for everything. I think it would be ideal, right, to have at least the high res and at least like the medium resolution. But we didn't have the time, unfortunately. So yes, Nanite definitely like made possible to have so much polygon data in the scene being rendered like quickly. Something experimental, I wouldn't say experimental, but we use rush hour. We try to the the rig, the automotive rig plugin from Unreal. We did have zero experience, right? So we were trying to learn while build the train while on track, right? And we have some issues with different things. I don't know exactly what was the issue, Andre. Do you remember why we ended up not choosing rush hour?
Oh, because we don't have actually the plugin is
It
very
wouldn't
good.
be editable later. You'd
Um,
be hard to edit later. Yeah.
it's actually very a good solution for the guy who make like a merchandising stuff for automotive company, but for our case, doesn't fit well because we need a little bit of more control, and we have our situation that the guy wants to drive the car, so we need to make a drivable car. So when we make this decision to make a drivable car, we need to get off this plugin and come to the option to make a game car, you know.
And it wasn't perfect either. Like you would get some
No,
mistakes and you need to adjust them. And with rush hour, it wasn't so easy to adjust
no,
later.
Rush Hour is a very good plugin. I like Rush Hour a lot, but actually we use and when we start to use Rush Hour, very good solution. I will use Rush Hour for sure in other cases, but for our case right now, uh, we don't have the real experience that we need about speed and other things, you know. So good stuff, Rush Hour, but for our case, it's not the best solution. For our case, you know, needs to be a drivable car. So we need to make Ramon, because the guy who make the
Our
action.
pilot.
Yeah, we need to make Ramon happy. So we need to make a drivable car for Ramon. So we need this part is important because this guy spent 1 week to do the lap and tried best to achieve the result of Senna.
His credit is real time pilot. And
Yeah.
he mentioned that when
That's
he
awesome.
was like finishing the lap, he was about to be faster than Senna, but he had to slow it down a bit.
So the problem is not rush hour. The problem is the guy who wants to drive the car. You know, that's the real
No, he's our
problem.
solution because if we didn't have him the car driving the car, we couldn't have all the information that he had on Senna because he's a super fan and contributed a lot for all the information
It was awesome.
Yeah,
on everything about Senna. So it was super fun.
He was also
And we
the
wanted to do a little bit of
F1
a game just
specialist.
because.
Tina, I think that this week of this guy driving the car was the most difficult part of the project, though, because everyone on the team say, "Man, just release, let it go." No, 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 just wait more. Oh my God, man, we need to spend like 1 week, and the guy said, now I almost the time on the set. I think, oh man, this is a movie. Who
And we
cares?
try with the PlayStation controller, and then we 3D printed a little wheel for the controller, and then finally we found a way to use the actual racing wheel.
And then
Because it's
Ramon's
way different. The way you control a car with a racing wheel, it feels different than when you're doing with your fingers, on the controller.
and then Ramon starts saying, I need to feel the car. Come on, man, just drive the car. Just let it go, dude.
So what I'm hearing is that y'all need to actually make the full
Yeah,
driving game now. Is
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
for
next
sure.
project?
That would be awesome. Imagine like a game with Senna. Just you can only control Senna, but in different times of his life. That would be awesome.
This
But
whole
yeah,
film
like
was an excuse for us to build a game. That's it.
Yeah, that's the
that would be
truth.
cool.
That's the
But imagine, it would be a completely different journey. Like focus on making the car look realistic on the rendering and the rigging. I mean, it would be a completely different quest, and making it pretty would be like the least problem. The problem would be like making it feel good to drive. It would be awesome. I would love that. We're building a game now, but it's character driven. It's a gardener, and it's more like a farm kind of game with some action fights. That's like a completely different journey with some of the same people, but it's a completely different journey. I think we're very babies in that sense. But if we choose to do something, we commit to it, and we try to do start off with a right foot and do something very nice and be able to say, oh, okay, this was a first try, and it looks great, and we always try that. But the truth is, like, if it's the first time you're doing it, it's gonna be the worst result ever because it's the first time you're doing it. But if you never try, like, you're gonna be stuck in that. Oh, if I had the courage to try it out, something to do that, something you're afraid of that might fail, you never know. And I think every time, or most of the time, we push to do something like this, or let's try something we never did and see if we can nail it. And even with the fails and the bumps on the way, eh, I, almost every time we manage to deliver. So yeah, I think it was a tremendous success for us to study something and deliver something that it did not feel like the first try.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm blown away at what you all were able to accomplish within 5 months with the tools that you were unfamiliar with. It's insane. I mean, the end result is gorgeous. There's no way I would have been able to tell any of those things just from watching the final render. So, I mean, huge, huge commendations to you and all the rest of your team. I mean, it's amazing. So, and also thank you so much again for taking the time to come on here today and to walk through the process with us, give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, so to say, at some of the process and some of the work that you all did. It's really cool. And I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
It's so much cooler for us. It's not every day that the software you use invite you to a live session, and we're very proud of being here. And yeah, like, I think it's awesome. The community, Unreal is building it, and it's very good marketing. Like the community move, it's pretty good. Like with documentation and the community itself. I know it's kind of new, but I think it's gonna grow a lot in the near future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And of course, also thank you. I just interrupted you. I am so sorry. What were you gonna
No,
say,
no,
Andre?
no. I'm just thank you too. Nice
Yeah.
to have this talk.
Yes, it was wonderful to have you on. And you as well, Vivi. It is wonderful to have you here as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you
And of
for having us.
course, yeah. And thank you everybody who came to watch the show, because it wouldn't be what it is without you and your interaction and your questions. So thank you for being here, hanging out, seeing cool projects with us. If anybody popped in a little bit later into the stream, no worries, because we post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channel, and Unreal Engine. You can also find us on all of our socials at Unreal Engine as well. Dan, if you don't mind popping up lower thirds here in a second as well, you can find all of these wonderful people on their socials as well. See some of their other projects, everything that they've been working on. Take up Andre's offer of asking him questions later.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed. We're going to end the show today by playing through the videos just one more time. So in case you missed it, you get a chance to see what the end result of all this hard work was. So before we do that again, one last big thank you to our guests for today. And we'll see the rest of y'all next week for next week's Inside Unreal. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Tina, and the Unreal team,
Yeah.
Dan, and everybody. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm ready.
Mr. Senna, what happened in Monaco?
That day, I suddenly realized that I was no longer driving it conscious. I was in a different dimension for me. The circuit for me was a tunnel, which I was just going.
Senna, slow down.
And I realized I was well beyond my conscious understanding.
Senna, you are so far in the lead. Please.
I just came to so close to perfection that I relaxed. I opened windows for mistakes.
Senna, please.
Ayrton Senna is out of his car and out of this race.
And I learned that there. And since then, I progressively come back because I lost some confidence. And progressively, I fought back. And I got much stronger after that incident. Somehow I got closer to God. And that has been very important for me as a man. Some moments when I am actually driving just detach me completely from anything else.